My mom said, "Your niece is so advanced. It's obvious who got the brains." While my daughter lowered her head, I replied, "Great. Then I'll let the brains handle her mom's bills." My sister froze. And then So here's something fun about me. Last Tuesday I sat in my car in a Wendy's parking lot and cried for 40 minutes because my bank account hit $11 and I still had 4 days until payday. And you want to know the kicker? The reason I was broke wasn't because of my bills. It wasn't because of my rent. It wasn't even because of my daughter. It was because I had just sent $800 to my grown adult sister so she could keep her cable on. Cable. Not electricity. Not water. Cable TV. Because God forbid Meredith miss a single episode of whatever trash reality show she's binging while I'm out here working 50-hour weeks. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. My name is Tommy. Well, Thomasina technically, but if you call me that, I will absolutely ignore you. I'm 34, I live in Dayton, Ohio. I have a 6-year-old daughter named Willa who is genuinely the funniest human being I've ever met, and I am tired. Not the kind of tired where you sleep in on a Saturday and feel better. The kind of tired that lives in your bones. You know that feeling? Because if you do, then you already understand half my story. Let me tell you about my family. My dad Hank is a good man. Quiet. The kind of guy who fixes things around the house and shows love by checking your tire pressure without being asked. He works at a hardware store, has worked there for 22 years, never complains. I got my work ethic from him. My mom Donna? That's a different conversation entirely. And my older sister Meredith? But we'll get there. Trust me, we will absolutely get there. So about 2 years ago, Meredith's husband Craig left her. Just packed a bag one morning and said he was done. Now look, I'm not gonna pretend I was shocked. Craig was checked out of that marriage long before he physically left. And honestly, Meredith wasn't exactly a dream partner either. But still, it was rough. He had 2 kids. Landon, who was 7 at the time, and Presley, who was 5. She hadn't worked in years because Craig made decent money and she quote-unquote needed to be home with the children. And suddenly she was alone with no income and no plan. So what did I do? What do you think I did? I stepped up. Because that's what I do. That's what I've always done. I started sending Meredith money every month. At first it was just groceries. Then it was her car payment. Then it was her phone bill, her kids' school supplies, her rent when the child support was late. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, this is temporary. She's going through it. She's depressed. I get it. Divorce is brutal. I've been a single mom since Willa was 2. I know how hard it is to rebuild. But here's what nobody tells you about helping someone. Once you start, they stop seeing it as help. They start seeing it as your job. Meredith never once said thank you. Not once. She texted me like she was placing an order. I need $300 for Landon's baseball registration. Presley needs new shoes. Can you send $100? No, please. No, when you get a chance. Just demands like I was some kind of ATM with a heartbeat. And I let it happen. I know. You're probably already yelling at your screen. But when it's family, it's complicated, right? You tell yourself it's just for now. You tell yourself they'd do the same for you. Even when deep down you know they absolutely would not. Now on top of all that, I was also helping my parents. My dad's hardware store job pays fine but not great, and my mom has some health stuff that gets expensive. So I'd send them money too. Not as much, but enough that I felt it. Between Meredith, my parents, and raising Willa by myself, I was basically working to fund everyone else's life while mine fell apart quietly in the background. But you want to know what really got to me? It wasn't the money. I mean, the money was brutal, don't get me wrong. But it was my mom. My mother Donna has this talent. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this. The woman could cut you open with a sentence and then smile like she just paid you a compliment. She's been doing it my whole life and she's perfected it into an art form. It started small. Little comments here and there about Willa. Now my daughter is 6. She's bright, she's creative, she's hilarious. She once told me the moon was the sun's nightlight, and I almost fell over. But she's also a little dreamy. She zones out sometimes. She'd rather draw pictures than do math worksheets, and she takes her sweet time with reading. She's 6. She's fine. She's more than fine. But according to my mother, Willa was slow. She never used that exact word to my face, she's too clever for that. It was always wrapped in something that sounded like concern. Oh, is Willa still struggling with her letters? Presley was reading full sentences at that age. Or my personal favorite, maybe you should get Willa tested, just to be safe. Some children just aren't academic. Can you imagine hearing that about your child? From your own mother? And every single time it was a comparison. Willa versus Presley and Landon. Meredith's kids were the golden grandchildren. Landon was so athletic. Presley was so advanced. And Willa was just the other one. The one my mom talked about with that little frown. That pitying tilt of the head. Do you think I said something? Of course I said something. Multiple times. I told my mom, Stop comparing them, they're all kids, they develop differently. And she'd wave her hand and go, oh Tommy, I'm not comparing, I'm just observing. Yeah, Donna. Great observation. Really helpful. And my dad? Hank would just sit there looking uncomfortable. He'd squeeze my hand later or say something like, your mom doesn't mean it like that. And I love my dad, I really do, but come on. She absolutely meant it like that. She meant every syllable. But the specific moment, that started to change everything happened on a Sunday afternoon about 5 months ago. We were all at my parents' house for dinner. Me, Willa, Meredith, her kids, my mom and dad. Normal family thing. Willa had brought this drawing she'd made at school. It was a picture of our family, me, her, and our cat Professor Beans. She was so proud of it. She'd used every crayon in the box. She marched right up to my mom and held it out like she was presenting a masterpiece. My mom looked at it, looked at Willa, and said, oh, that's creative, honey. You know, Presley won the art award at her school last month. Maybe she can give you some tips. Willa's face. I can't even describe it to you. That little light in her eyes just went out. She took the drawing back, folded it up, and didn't say another word for the rest of dinner. And I sat there and I watched my 6-year-old daughter shrink, and I didn't say a single thing because I was so tired and so used to swallowing it that my mouth just wouldn't open. That night, after I put Willa to bed, I sat on my kitchen floor and I made a decision. I didn't know the details yet. I didn't have a plan. But something in me shifted and I thought, I am done being the person who pays for everything and gets nothing back but pain. Now, I didn't act on it right away. Because I'm me and I overthink everything. But the wheels were turning. And what happened next? Oh, that's where this story really starts to get interesting. Because about a week later, Meredith said something to my daughter that made me do something I never in my life thought I was capable of. But I'll tell you about that in a minute. First, I need to know, have any of you ever been the person in your family who gives and gives and gives until there's nothing left? Because if you have, then you already know exactly what was building inside me. And trust me, when it finally came out, nobody saw it coming. Least of all me. So where was I? Right. Something had shifted inside me after that Sunday dinner where my mom dismissed Willa's drawing. I was still going through the motions, still sending Meredith money, still swallowing my mom's comments. But I was watching now. Keeping track. And once you start keeping track of how people treat you, the picture gets really clear really fast. About a week later, Meredith came over to grab some clothes Willa had outgrown for Presley. Normal enough. Willa was at the kitchen table working on a letter-matching worksheet, taking her time with it because that's how she is. She's careful. She's not slow, she's deliberate. Big difference. Meredith glanced at the worksheet, tilted her head and said, and I need you to hear this exactly. Willa's still on that level? Presley was past this in pre-K. But don't worry, sweetie, not everyone's a fast learner. To my child. To her face. With a smile. Willa looked up at me. She didn't cry. She just looked at me with those big brown eyes waiting. Like she was asking, are you gonna let this one go too, Mom? And something snapped. I mean physically snapped. Like a rubber band that had been pulled too tight for too long. I walked over to Meredith and I slapped her. I know. Before you judge me, actually, go ahead. Judge away. I'm a grown woman who slapped her sister in front of her 6-year-old. Not my finest moment. Violence is not the answer. I tell Willa that. I believe it. But my hand moved before my brain caught up. My body just decided we were done processing this through feelings. Meredith stood there holding her cheek, staring at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Maybe I'd been losing it for 2 years and nobody noticed because I was too busy covering everyone's bills. Don't you ever talk about my daughter like that again, I said. Not in this house. Not anywhere. You're crazy, she whispered. You actually hit me. And you actually insulted a 6-year-old to her face. So I guess we're both having a day. She grabbed her purse and left. Slammed my door so hard the key hook fell off the wall. Do you think I was wrong? Honestly, tell me. Because I've gone back and forth on it 1,000 times. The slap. Probably not great. Standing up for Willa. I'd do that again every single time. After Meredith left, Willa looked at me and said, Mommy, why is Auntie Meredith mean to me? 6 years old and she'd already clocked the pattern. Kids see everything. They just don't always have the words yet. I told her, she shouldn't have said that, baby. You're smart and wonderful. Some people say unkind things because they're unhappy inside. Willa thought about it and said, like when Professor Beans hisses at the vacuum because he's scared? I mean, tell me that kid isn't brilliant. Within the hour my phone exploded. Meredith called Mom and Donna. Oh, Donna was in her element. This was her Super Bowl. 7 missed calls. Texts like, you need to apologize right now. And Meredith was only trying to help Willa. Trying to help her mom. My dad called once. I picked up for him. Told him everything. He was quiet for a long time, then said, "I'm not gonna tell you hitting was right. But I understand why you're angry. That's Hank. He doesn't give speeches. He just makes you feel seen." And right then that was enough. Now here's the real turning point. Not the slap. What I did next. Because it was quiet and calculated and honestly way more effective. That night, after Willa fell asleep, I opened my banking app and added up every payment I'd sent Meredith over 2 years. Every transfer, every Venmo, every covered bill. The total? $8,600. From someone making $42,000 a year raising a kid alone. Then I added what I'd sent my parents. Another $3,000. Nearly $12,000 to people who either didn't appreciate it or actively tore me down while cashing my checks. Done. I was done. No more money to Meredith. Not a dollar. And my parents? I'd help my dad if he truly needed it, but the regular payments to a household where my mother mocked my child? And here's where it gets good. All that money I'd been handing out? I started putting it into a savings account. A secret one. Just me and Willa. And I gave it a goal. A vacation. Not a drive to my parents' house and get insulted for 3 days vacation. A real one. Beach. Pool. Little umbrella in my drink. I found a resort in Clearwater Beach, Florida. Kids Club, Ocean View, off-season deal. 6 nights. I could swing it in 3 months if I saved what I'd normally send to Meredith and Mom. The same money funding my sister's comfortable laziness was going to fund my daughter's first real vacation. I told nobody. Not even Dad. Because if Mom found out, she'd guilt me out of it or try to hijack it. This was ours. The first month was chaos. Meredith texted demanding an apology. I didn't respond. She texted asking for money for Presley's dance costume. I didn't respond. She called me selfish, petty, said I was punishing her children for a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. She called telling my kid she's slow a misunderstanding. Mom was worse. She'd call pretending nothing happened, then casually drop, "Your sister can barely keep food on the table, Tommy." Classic Donna. Every guilt trip just made me add another $20 to the vacation fund. By month 2, Meredith stopped texting entirely. That hurt more than the fighting, honestly. She was still my sister. But she never apologized. Not to me and not to Willa. So I kept saving. Dad stayed steady. Called once a week. Asked about Willa. Told me about his garage projects. Never pressured me. One night he said, "You sound lighter, Tommy." And he was right. For the first time in years I wasn't carrying everyone. Just me and my girl. Turns out that's a weight I can actually handle. Month 3 fund was full. Booked the resort. Booked the flights. Bought Willa a little pink suitcase with flamingos on it. And then I did something petty. I'm just being honest. I posted a photo on social media. 2 plane tickets on my kitchen table, caption, "Beach days coming soon," with a palm tree emoji. Nothing dramatic. But I knew they'd see it. And I knew they'd do the math. 20 minutes later. "Mom, must be nice to go on vacation while your sister can barely pay rent." I put my phone face down and went to help Willa decide which stuffed animals were coming with us. She wanted to bring Professor Beans, the actual cat. I had to explain that cats don't love airplanes. Now what happened on that trip and what was waiting when I got home, that's the part one still can't believe. Because the vacation was perfect. But coming back, everything got more complicated before it got better. And what my mom pulled while I was in Florida honestly still makes my blood pressure spike. Stay with me. Because this is where the whole thing turns. So Florida. Let me just say, if you've never watched your kids see the ocean for the first time, you're missing out on one of the best things life has to offer. Willa stood at the edge of the water, waves touching her toes, and whispered, "Mommy, the world is so big." And I thought, yeah baby, it is. And it's got room for us too. We had 6 perfect days. We built sandcastles. We ate shrimp tacos from a little stand on the boardwalk. Willa made friends with every single child at the kids' club within approximately 45 minutes because that kid has never met a stranger. I sat in a lounge chair and read an actual book. A whole book. Do you know how long it had been since I'd read a book that wasn't a bedtime story about a talking caterpillar? Years. Literal years. I didn't check my phone much. Turned off notifications for everyone except Dad. And it was the most peaceful week of my adult life. I cried twice, but the good kind. The kind where you're just relieved to finally be breathing. But on day 5, Dad texted me. Just 3 words. "Call me later." Now Hank is not a texter. The man can barely operate emojis. So when he sends a text, you pay attention. I called him that night after Willa passed out from a full day of swimming, still smelling like sunscreen and chlorine. "What's going on, Dad?" He sighed. That long Hank sigh that means he's about to tell you something he doesn't want to say. "Your mom's been talking, Tommy." "When is she not?" "No, I mean really talking. To people. She's been calling around to family telling them you abandoned Meredith. That you're blowing money on vacations while your sister starves. She called Aunt Jolene. He called your cousin Bridget. She even posted something on Facebook about how some people forget what family means. I sat on the edge of that hotel bed and stared at the ceiling. 6 days of peace, and my mother had spent them running a full smear campaign. Can you imagine that? You finally take one thing for yourself, one single thing, and someone turns it into evidence that you're a terrible person. Have any of you dealt with that? Because I'd really love to know I'm not alone here. I told Dad I'd handle it when I got home. He said, I know you will. Just wanted you to know what you're walking into. Classic Hank. Giving me the weather report so I could bring an umbrella. The flight home was rough. Not because of turbulence, because of my brain. I was already rehearsing conversations, arguments, defenses. Willa fell asleep on my shoulder wearing her little flamingo sunglasses, and I thought, I am not going to let them ruin this. She had the best week of her life. Nobody gets to take that from us. When we landed in Dayton, I had 14 missed calls. 8 from Mom. 4 from Meredith. 2 from Aunt Jolene, who I guarantee was just being nosy. I called no one back. I went home, unpacked, gave Professor Beans the aggressive amount of attention he demanded for being left with my neighbor for a week, and put Willa to bed. The next morning, Mom showed up at my door. Unannounced. Of course. She walked in like she owned the place, looked around my apartment and said, well, I hope that vacation was worth it. Because your sister is about to lose her apartment. Not, how was your trip? Not, how's Willa? Straight to guilt. Donna doesn't waste time with warm-ups. I sat down at my kitchen table and said, sit down, Mom. She looked surprised. I never tell her what to do. I'm the compliant one, remember? The one who swallows and smiles and writes checks. She sat. I need to say some things, I told her, and I need you to actually listen. Not wait for your turn to talk. Listen. Her mouth opened and I held up my hand. No. I'm going first. And then I said everything. All of it. 2 years of everything. I told her that I'd been financially supporting Meredith for 2 years with no thank you and no acknowledgement. I told her I'd been helping them too, quietly, because that's what I thought family did. I told her that Meredith had insulted Willa to her face, that it wasn't the first time, and that her own comments about my daughter being slow or behind or not as smart as the other grandkids had been destroying both of us. You compare them constantly, Mom. Every visit. Every phone call. Willa knows. She's 6 and she already knows that her grandmother thinks she's not good enough. Do you understand what that does to a child? My mom's face went through about 6 different expressions in 10 seconds. I watched her cycle through offense, denial, anger, and finally something I hadn't expected. She looked confused. Genuinely confused. Like she truly hadn't realized. I never said she wasn't good enough, Mom said quietly. You told her Presley could give her art tips. You asked if I'd gotten her tested. You said some children just aren't academic. That's her grandmother telling her she's less than. Mom stared at her hands. I was trying to help. You were comparing. And it hurts. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I didn't know it was that bad. And honestly, I think part of her actually meant it. My mom isn't evil. She's not a villain. She's a woman who grew up being compared to her own sister and never dealt with it, and now she's passing it down like some kind of broken family heirloom. That doesn't make it okay. But it made me understand her a little differently. Then I brought up the calls. The Facebook post. Telling the whole family I'd abandoned Meredith. You want to talk about abandonment? I said. I gave that woman nearly $9,000 in 2 years, Mom. While raising my own child alone. I didn't abandon her. I just stopped lighting myself on fire to keep her warm. Mom didn't have an answer for that. She just sat there picking at a thread on my placemat. I said, if you want a relationship with me and Willa, things have to change. No more comparisons. No more guilt trips. No more calling the family to trash me when I set a boundary. I am your daughter too. And Willa is your granddaughter too. Not the lesser version. Not the one you worry about. She is funny and creative and kind, and she deserves a grandmother who sees that. My mom left that day without saying much. Just, I need to think, and a stiff hug at the door. Honestly, I didn't know which way it would go. I thought there was a real chance she'd double down, call me dramatic, and go right back to Team Meredith. You ever have a conversation like that where you say everything perfectly and then spend 3 days convinced it didn't matter? That was me. Pacing my apartment, replaying it, wondering if I'd gone too far or not far enough. Then, 4 days later, something happened that I absolutely did not see coming. Meredith showed up at my door. She looked terrible. I don't say that to be cruel. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were red, her hair was in a bun that had given up on life. She was holding a piece of paper. Can I come in? She asked. I almost said no. I was that close to shutting the door. But she said, please, Tommy. I need 5 minutes. I let her in. She sat at the same table where she'd insulted my daughter. And she unfolded the paper. It was Willa's drawing. The family one with me, Willa and Professor Beans. The one she'd folded up after Mom's comment at dinner. Meredith had it. Mom gave this to me, Meredith said. She came to my apartment yesterday and gave it to me and told me to look at it. Really look at it. He started crying. Right there at my kitchen table. I've been so awful, Tommy. I've been so lost in my own mess that I turned into Mom. I hear it now. I hear what I said to Willa and I feel sick. She's a little girl. She's my niece and I made her feel stupid because I'm jealous of you. That caught me off guard. Jealous of me? Meredith, I'm broke. You're not broken though, she said. You lost your partner and you kept going. You work, you raise Willa, you handle everything alone. And I fell apart. Craig left and I just stopped. I stopped trying. I let you carry me because it was easier than standing up. And somewhere in there I started resenting you for being stronger than me and I took it out on your kid. And that is the worst thing I've ever done. I'm not gonna lie to you. I cried. I sat there and cried with my sister at my kitchen table. Because that was the first honest thing she'd said to me in 2 years. Maybe longer. He said she was sorry. Really sorry. Not the kind of sorry where someone just wants the fight to stop. The kind where their voice breaks and they can't look at you because the shame is too heavy. I'm getting a job, she said. I already applied at 3 places this week. And I'm going to pay you back. I don't care how long it takes. I told her I didn't care about the money. And I meant it. The money was never really the point. It was the feeling that I didn't matter unless I was useful. Then I said, you need to apologize to Willa. She nodded. I know. Not some adult apology she doesn't understand. Get on her level. Look her in the eyes. Tell her she's smart and you were wrong. Meredith wiped her face and said, can I do it now? Willa was in her room drawing. Because of course she was. That kid and her crayons are inseparable. Meredith knelt down next to her and said, Willa, I need to tell you something. I said something really mean to you and it wasn't true. You're smart. You're so smart. And your drawings are beautiful. Auntie Meredith was wrong and I'm sorry. Willa looked at her for a second, completely serious, and said, it's okay. Do you want to color with me? 6 years old. Just like that. Forgiveness served with a crayon. I almost lost it right there. Over the next few weeks things started shifting. Not overnight. Life doesn't work like that. But the ground started moving. My mom called me and actually apologized. Apologized. I nearly checked outside for flying pigs. She said she'd been thinking about what I said and she was ashamed of how she treated Willa. She said she wanted to do better. She asked if she could take Willa out for ice cream, just the 2 of them. And when they came back, Willa was wearing a little bracelet Mom had bought her and talking a mile a minute about how Grandma said her drawings were museum quality. Was it a little over the top? Yeah. But it was a start. And Willa was beaming. That's all I needed to see. Meredith got a job at a doctor's office doing front desk work. Not glamorous, but she was proud of it. She started paying her own bills. She even sent me $50 one week with a Venmo message that said, 1 down, 8,550 to go, with a crying laughing emoji. Dad never changed because Dad never needed to. He just kept calling once a week asking about Willa, telling me about his latest garage project. One night he said, I'm proud of you, Tommy. I should say that more. And I held the phone against my chest for a minute after we hung up because some words just need to sit with you. Are we a perfect family now? No. Absolutely not. Mom still makes comments sometimes and I still have to check her. Meredith and I are rebuilding and some days it feels fragile. There are moments where the old patterns try to creep back in, and I have to remind myself that I'm allowed to have boundaries. That setting a boundary isn't the same as being selfish, no matter what anyone tells you. But here's what I know now that I didn't know a year ago. I know that my worth is not measured by what I give other people. I know that my daughter is watching how I let the world treat me and she's taking notes. And I know that sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't slapping your sister. Although, the timing was impeccable, it's sitting at a kitchen table and saying the truth out loud even when your voice is shaking. Willa still draws every day. Last week she drew a new family picture. This time it had everyone, me, her, Professor Beans, Grandma, Grandpa, Auntie Meredith, Landon, and Presley. She used every crayon in the box. And this time nobody had a single thing to say about it except, Willa, that's beautiful. And it was. So that's my story. Or at least that's where it is right now. If any of this felt familiar to you, if you've been the one carrying everyone, the one swallowing the comments, the one whose kid has been made to feel small, I want you to know it's okay to stop. It's okay to set the weight down. The people who really love you will still be there when you do. And the ones who aren't? Well, that tells you everything you need to know. If you like this story, I'd love it if you hit that like button. And if something bugged you or you would have handled it differently, tell me in the comments. I genuinely want to hear it. Because the thing about sharing your story is that it only really matters when other people connect with it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And thank you for staying with me through the whole thing. It means more than you know.